Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a really forensic look into a fascinating case of workplace data suppression. We're going to break down a situation from the office drama stories universe that perfectly captures how modern corporate cover-ups actually happen in the real world. Listen, it's not about shredded papers in a dark room anymore. It's about a tiny, seemingly boring administrative object that ended up sparking a massive workplace investigation. We're going to see exactly how a sharp team used systems and structure to expose the truth.
Maya Carter, the strategy lead in this case, really hit the nail on the head when she said, "The dangerous documents never look dangerous first." Think about that for a second. We are looking at a story where a simple dashboard filter, an object so completely mundane you'd probably click right past it without a second thought, held the key to proving that a huge piece of work had its true author erased. It's just a powerful reminder that the biggest revelations usually hide in the smallest, most ordinary places.
Okay, moving into section 1, a quiet corporate habit, hiding in the mundane. You know, old toxic office habits don't announce themselves with some grand villain speech.
They don't walk into a room and declare their bad intentions. Instead, they quietly return through small exceptions. Let's dive into exactly what data suppression looked like in this scenario. We're talking about an operations coordinator named Sofia. She did the actual heavy lifting, only to have her credit totally stripped away by a boring dashboard filter. Data suppression is the act of hiding, altering, or omitting administrative records to quietly erase an employee's name. Let's be real, it's theft, but it's dressed up as a simple software update.
The contrast here is just brilliant. The company wanted a quiet, clean morning in the office, but instead, they received a record that refused to stay polite. This single, ownerless dashboard filter just sat there, silently screaming that something had been taken. The record didn't raise its voice. It literally just waited for someone patient enough to read it.
Which brings us to section 2, polite excuses for erasure, the language of the old culture. When someone notices a discrepancy like this, the old culture rarely admits fault.
Instead, they rush in to cover up the missing name with incredibly polite management speak. We hear excuses like ensuring alignment, focusing on a team outcome, or saying the work just needed some polish. But the reality? It's much darker. Erasure, missing names, stolen credit, a total lack of accountability. These polished corporate words are literally weaponized to hide the actual theft of Sofia's work.
Naturally, when you start pushing back on these polite excuses, the pressure really ramps up. A senior leader actually tried to tell Sofia and Maya to be careful not to turn this into a personal war. But Maya delivered an absolutely incredible response. She said, "Truth is not damage. Hiding it was." I mean, wow. The truth wasn't causing the drama, the cover-up was.
All right, section 3, building the proof map, following the system. So, how exactly do you fight back when powerful people deny the truth using polite language?
Well, you don't chase people. You follow the systems. You build a map of proof. There's a deep, deep power in structured, logical thinking here. Panic gives powerful people time to clean up their mess. But calm makes that dashboard filter louder. Sofia didn't scream or shout. She calmly opened the file properties and asked the most useful, structural questions. What changed? Who changed it? And who gained power when it changed?
And to answer those questions, they needed context. Enter Nina, the executive assistant. Nina came in and literally brought the receipts. She pulled calendar exports, saved drafts, meeting notes, and delivery receipts. She proved that invisible background work always leaves a trail. The room desperately wanted to treat this as one isolated, harmless mistake, but Nina brought the entire pattern right to the table.
This realization from Nina is absolutely crucial. She said, people forget that background work still has foreground records. Rooms booked and links forwarded aren't just administrative clutter, right? They are actual forensic evidence. They place that single dashboard filter inside a much larger, undeniable pattern.
Let's move to section 4, the system speaks sequence, the raw export. It's time for Jordan, the IT audit specialist, to translate all this metadata into undeniable proof.
Because truth isn't some cinematic hacker trick. It's a sequence. The data maps it out perfectly. First, we see Sofia Lane as the owner of the update at 8:14 a.m. Then an automatic system sync happens at 9 a.m. And then, magically, at 10:42 a.m., the dashboard filter owner is just blank. Scrubbed. There's zero interpretation needed here. This raw export shows the exact moment the credit was erased.
And here is Jordan's massive discovery that completely blew apart that harmless process issue excuse. The filter owner is blank because it was imported from a private workbook. Somebody actively took Sofia's work, moved it to a private space, and re-uploaded it without her name. That is not an accident. That is design.
This is the turning point. Aisha, the analyst, asked a question that shifted the entire energy of the room. She asked, who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? Office lies survive when the harm is kept vague, but they absolutely collapse the moment the benefit becomes specific.
Okay, Section 5, Public Repair and Protection. Writing the workflow. Once the truth is out, the next battle is the resolution. In a toxic office, management will always push for a private fix.
They want a quiet apology, maybe a pat on the back behind closed doors. But the team refused to accept a silent private apology for a public erasure. Maya insisted on an incredible philosophy here. Do not quietly fix what can publicly teach. A stolen credit system survives because nobody else learns where the traps are. If the damage was public enough to erase a name, the correction absolutely must be public enough to restore it.
Let's look at how they actually hardwired this protection into their systems. Step 1. Preserve the dashboard filter. 2. Attach the reason code. 3. Notify the affected employee. 4. Correct the public record. And 5. Log the correction in the audit trail. This isn't just good intentions. This is structural architecture. They wrote the lesson directly into the workflow, so it leaves very clear footprints next time.
So the crucial architectural rule they put in place was this. Every production filter needs an accountable owner. Simple, right? But it prevents this specific type of theft from ever happening again. The new culture uses process to name people correctly before the next theft even has a chance to begin.
And that brings us to the core thematic lesson of this entire incident. A workplace becomes safer when names cannot be quietly removed and records cannot be politely ignored. Truth rarely arrives as a big speech. It arrives as a timestamp, an export, and a sequence patient enough to outlive the lie.
Which leaves me with a final, really provocative question for you to reflect on as we wrap up this explainer. If your workplace systems are audited today, would your actual contributions have a timestamp and a witness? It's a powerful thought to chew on regarding your own documentation and office culture. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I highly encourage you to apply this kind of structured thinking to your own work. See you next time.